I am walking along the old racetrack location, 3 miles southwest of Eau Claire. The first race was held here on July 4, 1955. It was called the Ideal Speedway. And right now, where I am right now, it was the racetrack section of ground here, because the banking and the turn of the track indicates this is going to be the side where the pits are on. The pits would be on just to my right. But this particular racetrack opened up July 4, 55 as the Ideal Speedway. It later became another name, like the Eau Claire Speedway. Then it went to Auto Memory Speedway. Then it went back to Eau Claire Speedway. But over time, you had this quarter-mile track, and it lasted until 1977. Since 1977, this place was allowed to overgrow with trees, and it was like a small woods. Now, as today's date, June of 2021. The reality is this land now is going to be repurposed for another reason. Now, this is the old way to leave the racetrack. So the racetrack is back here, and this, as the Eau Claire Speedway, will never be existing in any form again. I believe this is going to be some type of a development in which the property will be turned over to some other purpose or use. The ground will be leveled, and there'll be no more remnants of the racetrack. This racetrack opened up on July 4. It had lasted only a couple of years and closed down around 1957 or 8. The race cars then all went to the Durand Speedway, which currently location is the golf course outside of, or just on the edge of Durand. That racetrack ran successfully for a couple of years, but its future ended on it ended on September 25, 1960, where 2 cars got into an accident during a race, and a third car could not avoid the scene and ran into the first 2 vehicles. And those 2 vehicles, nobody was hurt or injured. However, the third car, when the driver had to stop quick and then contacted the other vehicles, his body went forward, and the safety harness came free from the frame of the vehicle. Don't know why. Maybe the latch broke. We don't know the answer to that either. But anyway, he became unattached to his safety gear, and he died after he was taken to the Durand Hospital. His name was August Knudsen. His son later raced at Eau Claire, Jack Knudsen. He had car number 68. But August Knudsen, they call him Augie, died that day, and then the racetrack at Durand pretty much ended. Eau Claire restarted it in the 60s, and then later became the Auto Memory Speedway. This was well known for many years. Then Graziano and Sirianni, a team of 2 men, bought the racetrack and operated it again after Auto Memory Speedway. But the races then ended in 1977, and most of the racing action all went to Menominee Red Cedar Speedway. So right now I'm looking at the racetrack land where the racetrack was, and soon there'll be no remnant of it anymore. Now, I did make a video back about 10-15 years ago walking in the same area that shows all the trees that they cut down. There's a pile in my picture right now, there's a pile of those trees. Those were there in over 15 years ago when I made the video. Now I'm looking here at the land, and you'll see there's a depression area because that's where the racetrack thing, the small banking of the racetrack ended. This was a quarter-mile speedway, but it lasted from 1955 to 1977. Many things happened here, including a worker that lost his life when he had an incident with a water truck back in the 60s. And one driver I know of passed away of a heart attack during a race. And he rolled in off the racetrack and hit the post protecting the crowd, but he wasn't going that fast. But there has been several losses of life here. This is one of them about the water truck, and then another driver had a heart attack, but there may have been others that I'm not currently updated on. But this will be no more. So the racetrack sat pretty much where I'm looking at now. It was a quarter-mile banked dirt track with clay, and the grandstand was on the left side of the racetrack, on the west side. In early years, the pits were in the middle of the racetrack. The latter years, the pits were on the east side of the racetrack. And now it's going to be gone. So from 1955 until 2021, remnants could be seen in the racetrack, but they will not be here in 2022. It'll be over with. Those houses have been built on the land where they had the people park their cars as spectators. Beyond those row of houses is the mobile home park that was owned and run by Pete Graziano. So it marks an end of an era of this racing. Now, in the past history in Eau Claire, there was a stock car track on Ash Street. This was north of the VFW Club on Star. To the left side, there was a dirt racetrack there. And I believe that Harold Mueller raced there back in the 50s. He had car number 33 Junior, later ended up with car 7 Up, and then he ended his career at car number 19, and that's what it comes down to. Well, I'm approaching where the main gate was on the north. Well, this would be the south entrance. The north entrance was crossing Peter Murphy's 3 Mile Inn. So I'm approaching where I walked in with my camera, and it would be the entrance. And the entrance gate now is the only largest thing ever left now of the racetrack, is that gate. And I don't think that's going to last very long. So this racetrack been around for a while, but its memory of the engines, the people, and the drivers of the past will end. Punky Manor was racing here until 1976, 77 time. And in 1979 he lost his life, but he was here for many years. I have pictures of him in the hobby stock. It was original 57 Ford street stock. Now we're going to start to lightly rain right now, and the wind's picking up, but this is the end as I know it, will be of the Eau Claire Speedway, Auto Memory Speedway, or the Ideal Speedway from July 4th to 5. Now, the first man injured in the race car accident was Rocky Phillips. Back in '55. It was a minor injury, but it was an injury. But now the racetrack is going to take the final injury by disappearing off the face of the earth, basically. This thing I have to keep track of in updates and be able to watch what happens to this land. I guess they're planning another street or two to increase the number of houses, lots, you know, to build on a pond. But the racetrack will be gone, but not from my memory. I remember we had my family had a race car back in 1959, and we raced it in around 1960. It was a white Studebaker. I think the number was X44 or 44X, one of those numbers. And the father quit racing after the death of Augie Knudsen. There was nothing that Augie did wrong. Just by some strange acts of physics and reality of the age of the vehicles used, something broke loose. And the coincidence of this is that Augie Knudsen is buried at the Rest Haven Gardens, and that's where Pete Graziano is. Also Neil Manor Sr. and Punky Manor, Neil Manor Jr. So Punky's there, the father's there, including the brother Chris Manor. Chris Manor was the last child to race stock cars. He raced in Florida, and his car number was 57. And he died of some childhood, I think, leukemia he had, something like that, later on in life. He didn't live that long, but he did become involved in racing, and was the third person in the family to have number 57, because Neil Manor had the car, and one of his early drivers he hired was Red Steffen. After that, then Phil Prusek ended up with 57, and then it was given over to his son Punky. So history in this place goes back a long time. It's just that I wish it would have lasted a little longer, but it's not. Well, as the precipitation has been increasing, it's time to end the video.